Just a quick note before I start the video. I'm sorry about the quality. For some reason it recorded in some sort of weird resolution. I'll have it fixed for next video. Thanks and enjoy the video. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be trying something a bit different from my normal Blender content in the form of a tutorial series. In this series I will be trying to go over the basics for the first few episodes, and then we will move on to some more complicated things, and hopefully by the end of this series you will have learned about how to use Blender and you can do projects and animations like I do. I will be aiming at any audience that wants to learn 3D modeling or animation, so I will try and explain everything in detail so that it's easy to understand. The first thing that you're going to want to do is install the latest version of Blender. For this series we will be using Blender 2.82, which is the latest full release. I'll have the link in the description for the download, so you can install Blender and then come back to this video. In this first episode I'm going to be going over what all of the different tabs and windows do, as you will be using them quite a lot in even simple modeling. So for this first episode you can just sit back and watch, and we'll actually start modeling and messing around with things in the next episode. When you first open Blender, it will come up with a window asking you if you want to use your left or right mouse button to select. I use my right mouse button because I have gotten used to it with Blender 2.7, but if you choose your left mouse button, when I say right mouse button that means select. So once you have selected what you want to select with, you're gonna click off the menu thing and you'll end up in this. This is the basic default scene that everyone starts with. So today we're going to be going over all of these different tabs, which there's a lot, so I'll try and make it relatively quick. So let's just go through everything. So up here you'll have the file, which probably don't need to talk about because it's on most applications. I've got editing, undoing stuff. Rendering I'm going to talk about in next episode because that's like a whole different subject. The window, you can make new windows, and the help. So in this layout tab, this is like showing everything. This will be what you're doing most of your work in, but you can also go to the modeling. This is how I do my stuff to make complex meshes, or how anyone will, and you will edit vertices, but you can also access that different ways. So that was the modeling. The sculpting one, it's just a window. It selects the mesh that you have selected, and you have all of these different brushes. I'll just give a quick example, or I won't because it's not high poly enough, but yeah, this will just be, you can see what the brush is going to look like over here, and this is for sculpting things like if you're doing character meshes. The UV editing over here, this tab, will be what you use for texturing. As you can see, when I select all of these, it pops up with the net of a cube, and this is how you would align your textures to make sure they all fit to how you want. For texture painting, I'm not entirely sure what it does because I don't use it, but I'm assuming that you have a seamless texture or any texture and you can paint it onto certain parts. For shading, this will be where you're making your complex materials, so like turning up metallic amounts, turning down specular. You have all of these settings, and there is much more to do. So this is where you're doing all of your material editing. The animation, this is where you're like making things move around, but I'll go over that in a later episode. So this is where you'll be setting up, like, say if I just give an example here and then you click over here, this is how you would do it. So that's what this tab is for. For rendering, this is just showing the results of your renders. Compositing, So this is if you had, like, say a green screen thing, you had a video and you wanted to import something over that video, you would do it in here. This is also where you add like audio clips, all of that kind of stuff. And the scripting tab, I don't want to mess with that because that's the code for Blender. So that's gone over all of these bars up the top. You've also got the different things down here. This will mean if you drag the mouse around, click, or yeah, just dragging with your left mouse will select things or anything in the area. Here is moving the 3D cursor, which the 3D cursor is just where the next objects you put in will appear. That's where everything like starts off when you add it. Here, that's moving. So if you select an item, you can move it around like this, but I'll go over this in the next episode when I talk more in detail over how to move, scale, rotate, and things like that, which is also scaling and rotating here, and this is everything. Here you have the annotate, so you can write things, draw things over cubes, do all kinds of stuff, which can be very useful, because there's settings that let you use it for more than just drawing. Then this is a measurement thing, so you can scale things accurately. So that's all of these ones. You've also got all of the different modes, which again is up here. The edit mode will be the same as the modeling tab, sculpting tab. These are like the texturing. So that's, again, all of these are just different ways to get to different things. You've also got all of your settings for like views in here. You can see if I press T it comes up with these. If I press N you've got like all of the rotation, transformation stuff, but you can put in the measurement in meters to make it more exact. You've also got the active selection thing, which is same as over here, and you've got views, so this is what you would use for your camera, like focal length, camera settings, locking to cameras, all of those things, but we won't worry about them for now. Up here you've got, you can set up so that you only see certain types of things. You could only see meshes, you could turn meshes off, do all kinds of things. I could yeah, there should be a way to turn off this stuff as well, but I just don't know where it is. So that's that thing. You've got all of the gizmos, which is I think these, or possibly, nah, that's these, which is just other ways of moving around, zooming in, panning, going into camera, and the grid. So you've also got the overlays, so you can turn off the grid or the floor. You can make it so you only see certain things. But yeah, that's that simple part. You've got, so this will let you see everything, even if it's behind another object. So for example, if I just add in another cube, you can't see it at the moment, but if I turn this on you can see both of them, so that's like making everything so you can see everything in the scene, which is sometimes good and sometimes can be bad. This is where you're going to get all of your different viewing modes. So the first one, this is the default one, it's just simple shaded cubes, doesn't take long, which is why it's real time. You've also got the wireframe, which is just the point between the vertices. Here's the I think that's, yeah, this is just materials, which I'll talk about in a later episode again. This is how you're going to see like your textures and things without rendering. And this is the, because Blender 2.8, one of the main things was it has real-time rendering, so this is what it looks like with the render. You can see when I move the light around, it's affecting the shadows and everything. So we're done with all of the stuff around here. Down here is your like playing, pausing for animations. You can play backwards. That was the thing that I edited up in the animation tab. You've also got your timeline here. And then you've got heaps of stuff down here, which I think I'll talk about this when I do animation. And yeah, these things which you can do up here as well. You can change what this screen is. You can make it an image editor, shaders, but just normally keep it in 3D viewport because you'll use these ones for these things in here. So I think that's done it for all around the viewport. Now we just have the sidebars. So here it's just choosing, like, again, the things that happened up here or over here. A lot of it's repeated, but just in different places. Now this is your render settings, so you can choose your render engine. If you're doing high quality renders, you want it to be super nice looking, you'll be doing it in cycles, which takes longer to render, as you can see for the real time thing. It's not even really real time, it's rendering every frame. But if you just want to chuck something together quickly or edit while you're rendering, you'll do Eevee, because Eevee has real-time rendering, which can be really nice for setting up camera shots, or just for a quick render because it's a lot quicker. For the sampling, the higher you have these numbers, the better looking the final render will be. So if I turn up the viewport, you probably won't realize it now because it's only 2 cubes, but the higher you have that, the better the render will look. You've got things like ambient occlusion, bloom for lights, you can change your depth of field, subsurface scattering, I think that's like how light scatters around and off objects. This, I have no idea. Some of these things I won't know what they do, so I'll have to do a bit of research as well. But you've got your motion blur, you've got hair, and you can... hair is quite fun to mess around with. You've got your shadows, and you can like make it soft shadows, hard shadows, whatever you want. Indirect lighting, don't really know what that is, so I'll get round to it at some point. Then you've got like color management, changing film stuff, and yeah, always have it on Filmic. If you don't have it on Filmic, your renders will just look horrible in terms of lighting. So that's the render properties tab. This tab will be for choosing how your render will look. So you've got your resolution for the render, you've got your aspect ratio, you've got how long an animation will be, you can choose your frame rate, you can do all sorts of stuff here. You can set up 3D cameras, which can be fun. Here's just choosing where you put your renders, and I just closed Blender. So I've got Blender back up and running, and yeah, it's a new release, so it's gonna have lots of bugs. But let's just keep going with the tutorial. So, as I was saying, we've got 3D cameras over here. Here you choose where you're gonna put your video saves, and you've got like whether you want to save it frame by frame or into a video, whatever one of these you want. So like you've got heaps of settings. You've got data, post-processing, all of those things. So that's what the rendering tab is for. Here you've got your layers and things. You can do like turning on mist, which can be fun. It can look good if you have the right settings and you know what you're doing. You've got colors, ambient occlusion. You can just, this is like for the layers of what you're going to see over each other. For this one is the scene. So this I normally don't like messing around with because sometimes I'll screw it up and I can't get it back. So this is where you choose your cameras. You can have multiple and get them to swap around. You can choose your metric system. That's just going to help with moving things around. Kilograms, that'll be for setting weights if you have physics. Turning on gravity, again for physics. Keying sets, not quite sure. The volume, yeah, normally I wouldn't use volume unless I'm doing like a sort of animation that needs audio to work. There's rigid body stuff, which, yeah, we'll talk about later. And custom properties, that's just whatever. So here's the world. This is like the background, how everything's grey. That's because the background colour is set as grey. You can normally... Do I know what I'm doing? No, I don't, but this will be for renders. So if I just render now, everything will be green. Alright, so today's episode, we've found out if you close any window, then it'll close like every part of Blender. Alright. Yeah, good to know. So if you open something, you have to keep it open. Alright, here we go, got it back. So where were we? We were in world settings. So yeah, this is just gonna change the color of the background and everything. You can change the strength of the light. That'll just be if you have like, if you want it to shine onto something, change that color. That'll be when you turn the strength up. We've got volumes. I've got the viewport display color. That's what I was messing with earlier, but doesn't seem to be working. And again, custom properties. Not sure what that will do. Here you've got, so all of these will be settings for the thing that you have selected. So this is the transformation. This will just be how you, another way to move, but we will just be using the grab tool instead of these. And it's all of these different settings for rotation, scale, you can scale it along different axes. We've also got these things, which again, I'm not sure about what that difference is. But yeah, we've got relations, so you can parent it to an object. So say if I parent the cube to the camera, wherever I move that camera, the cube will follow. Or I could do it with the light, and then if I select the light, move it, the cube follows. So that's what parenting is, and you track the axes. For collections, you can add, so the collections up here, I'll probably talk about them in the next episode, because they're like a big subject as well. So yeah, I'll talk about them later. Instancing, I would have to look up, but yeah, a lot of this stuff we won't be using for the moment, but I'm just showing you where everything is. Motion paths, this is, I think, like speeds and things, visibility, just showing different things. So this would be if you want it to not show in a render, you check that box and it won't appear when you render. For viewport display, you can turn on its name, you'll see cube. You can turn on its wireframe as well, so there's like, it's a clear wireframe around every vertex. You can turn on texture spaces, make it in front of everything else, show its axis, so we know for this object the Z is that way, X is that way, and then all of the edges, yeah, not sure. And then you can also show its shadow. But that thing here is the same as these up here, so again it's all repeatable and just in different places. And you can also choose its color. I think that might just be for the text, and then that's it for the transformation. Modifiers will have their own episode because there's so much stuff this is where you'll be spending a lot of your time. Like, if you want something to be smooth, you'll chuck in that one, turn it up a bit, and now it's smoothed. Like, modifiers are a lot of the stuff that you'll be using. So yeah, I'll come out with an episode just on them. For this part, this should be, particles. So if we just do a particle emitter, it'll emit particles just affected by the gravity, or you could set it to hair, because hair are just particles. You can change the number, so it'll emit more, or affect the seed. When it starts, you could have it start late in the animation and end late. Change the lifetime of each one longer, so things will last for more frames if you want them to fall further. Lifetime randomness, you can change that as well. You can set it to emit from the faces or vertices, so that'll just be coming from them, or the edges, the volume of the things, so that's just everywhere in general. You can make it like a grid pattern, which always looks cool. But yeah, there's just heaps of stuff that you can do with these. Highly customizable. Yeah, you can cache the frames, that'll just mean it'll be quicker to render. You've got your velocity, you can make them fly incredibly fast. Or, yeah, the different phases, you could make it go sideways. Yeah, their velocity, but you have to have it coming out from a certain direction. You've got their rotation, but you only really need to do that with, like, if it's emitting certain shapes. For now it's just a sphere, so rotation won't matter. You can change the physics, which you'll be doing different things for, like, fluid simulations, but fluid simulations are difficult. You can do the density, the stiffness, buoyancy, all of that stuff. You've got your render settings, you can change materials, you can make them so that they look like objects, so I could make them into a cube. Yeah, but it doesn't seem to be working at the moment. So you've got the viewport displays, you've got children, which if I do interpolated, and I'll just get rid of that. Then each one will have a group of children, which is how you get more. And I think I broke it. We've got their weights, force field settings, so that's things like wind. Got vertex groups, textures, all of these things that you'll do if you're trying to make like fluids. If you're doing trees in a big area, each tree is just a particle. And yeah, so that's all for the particles ones. I'm just going to pause that animation. Here you've got physics, so you can do force fields, set it to wind, vortexes, magnetic stuff. Like if I say, let's do a vortex, and now if I play, these should be affected, but they might not be because I have certain settings on. So you can do that. You can have cloth simulations, are always fun. I'm just going to get rid of that. So yeah, cloth simulations, probably not going to work with just a cube. You've got soft body stuff, rigid body, fluids, but yeah, so that's all of the stuff for physics. Here you've got object constraints, so this is like making it follow a track or transform in certain ways, get clamped to certain objects, follow things, stretch from one to another. Armature is like bones, so that's how you animate people. So this is like how to get things to follow other things. Here you've got your vertex groups, which are very useful. So if you go over to the modeling and you would select, let's say, these 4 vertices, you could create a vertex group and assign them, and then if you say animate something, you can make it so it only moves a certain vertex group, which can be, you can get some really cool and weird things going on with them. But yeah, that's what vertex groups are. Here you've got your materials, so this is like textures, this is colouring, it's everything to do with what the thing will look like. So if you wanted something like a metal material, you make it metallic, you like turn up the roughness a bit. And then if I go to rendered view, it'll be like metallic and the roughness will be up. So yeah, that's what it'll look like. You can change the colour, you can animate the colour, which is always fun. And yeah, this is just all of the stuff, but it gets even more complicated when you get into node editing. And then here is just texture properties, so this is how you would brush textures onto it, which is the same as the texture painting thing. But yeah, that is all of the tabs. So yeah, if you want to know anything specific about Blender, let me know in the comments and I'll try and get around to answering questions. I'll hopefully have a second episode out soon, and in that one we'll talk about moving, rotating, scaling, and maybe throwing collections in there if we have time. But yeah, thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed and start learning how to use Blender.